Hi y'all, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Ronke and I love to talk about travel, career, and general life tips. If that sounds like your type of jam, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. In today's video, I'm talking about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is something that I'm sure pretty much all of us have dealt with at some point in time and will probably continue to deal with in various areas of life, specifically when it comes to our career. Now, imposter syndrome is typically characterized by doubting your abilities, skills, or qualifications when it comes to a specific role or opportunity. One thing that I've had to remind myself is that just because I don't feel like an expert in something doesn't automatically make me an imposter. Now, here are some of the things that I think through just to gauge whether I truly am the imposter. The first thing to really keep in mind is that more often than not, if you feel like an imposter, you're probably not. Like, that's a level of self-awareness that you're showing that is indicating that you understand that there might be some sort of knowledge gap, right? Now, just because you are thinking if you're an imposter doesn't mean that you're not an imposter, right? So there are some instances where you think about it and you're like, am I an imposter? And yeah, you the imposter. You are the imposter. But just having the self-awareness to kind of even go through this for me, I think is important. I think it helps us to be self-aware, and I think it helps us to actively make amends or improve ourselves if we do find out that we are lacking in some area. The first thing that I like to try to keep in mind is that sometimes imposter syndrome isn't necessarily imposter syndrome as in you are not qualified, period, but it might just be that maybe you're not qualified for that specific thing. And so in the professional context, that might be something called role misalignment. And so let's say that you're hired into a company to support them with project management, and somehow, some way that starts to shift to products management. You might start to feel like an imposter, but that doesn't mean that you are not qualified or skilled in project management. It might just mean that product management isn't necessarily your thing. So when you are trying to consider if you're an imposter, if you're not an imposter, I really do think it's important to try to understand what your specific skills are and what the requirements for the role are. If they do not align, then that is probably role misalignment. And then the best way to resolve that is to either try to work on those skills if you know that it is something you're interested in, or to find a role that's better suited for the skills that you have. Once again, I wouldn't necessarily say that that makes you an imposter because, you know, sometimes what you're brought in for changes, or, you know, roles expand over time. So just be mindful of that as you are working. For me, another thing that I like to do if I start feeling like an imposter is to look at others in the same space that probably are coming with similar experiences or similar years of experience, and try to determine based on where they are, where I'm at. If I'm leading the pack, then I'm obviously not the imposter, right? However, if I'm struggling or I'm missing some key things that they're able to grasp, then yes, maybe there are some gaps that I have that I need to work on. But I do think it's important when you're thinking about imposter syndrome to appropriately gauge yourself. It doesn't make sense for you to be someone who's fresh out of college comparing yourself to someone who has 10 years of experience and is functioning at like a manager or director level when you're probably like an associate or entry-level staff. You need to look at the people who are probably in similar positions to you to have an idea of like where your skill set is expected to be. I mean, typically with most organizations anyway, you are calibrated or you are kind of assessed in relation to others who are within the same general role as you. So that's kind of the mindset you want to have when you're also trying to assess if you are having skill gaps. Now, what I will say is that if you are in a position where you identify that, hey, there's like truly a skill gap, I think the next important thing you need to ask yourself is how feasible is it that you can close this skill gap in a reasonable amount of time? Now, reasonable amount of time and how feasible it is truly dependent on you, right? If you are in a role and you are expected to be performing all the time, you might not have a lot of time to try to figure out some things. And so you need to do your own self-assessment and figure out if this is a skill that you actually have enough time to pick up. Now, we've all heard the phrase about building the plane while you're flying it. And while in reality that is crazy, in theory, especially in a work environment, it's not always a terrible thing, right? If you are building the plane while you're flying it because, let's say, your role has expanded and you're learning some new skills on the job, that's not so terrible. And in some of those situations as well, it's easy to feel like an imposter because you're literally learning on the job. But it's important to recognize in moments like that that you are in fact not an imposter. You're just someone who's going through growth, and growth can be uncomfortable at times. So if you are shadowing someone, learning from someone, or once again, just kind of doing it on your own and picking up new skill sets as you go along, yeah, you might struggle a little bit or you might fumble here and there, but it is important to remember that this is a marker of growth and not of being an imposter. Finally, I do think if you are someone that is currently in a position where you are ready for the challenge and you know you're going through growth, I would say just be confident, be confident and be mindful of how you carry yourself. Most people will feed off of the energy that you give about yourself. And so if you downplay yourself or downtalk yourself in front of others, there's a likelihood they'll start to internalize what you're saying, and that will reflect on how they see you. And so for me, it's important that even if you feel like an imposter, or even if you feel like you're not as fully equipped as you would like to be, even if you feel like you are still going through that growth phase or trying to learn more skills, for me, I think it's important that you still project self-confidence and that you carry yourself like somebody who deserves to be there. When you feel like you're being an imposter, it's important that you take the time to reflect on these things, but also take the time to reach out to others who can be a resource to you and ask the right questions. No one is ever going to know 100% of everything in the world. So try as you may, you won't know everything. So it is important to ultimately still reach out to others and use the people around you, whether the people in the same role as you or people on the same project or people in the same organization that can be of help. It's important to use anyone that you can get to as a resource and ask them the right questions that can help you feel more confident, and that will also help you grow in the skill set that you're needing. That's all I have for today's video. Let me know down in the comments if you have ever given up a position because you felt like you were an imposter. As always, please make sure to like this video, share with others, and subscribe to my channel for more travel, career, and general life content. See you in the next one.